Chapter 13 Uieti Hidoorve.
That depends on whether or not you're in the market to purchase an exotic slave. Ought this not be the reason for your inquiry? I said no such thing.
He quickly capitalizes on his spoken blunder. This is good. Kishnu will sell us for the right price, and these merchants seem to mean business.
May we examine the product?
Grim and Gur ask, barely containing their bustling anticipation. Kara deftly parts the veil that demarcates our moving confinement from the external world, and indelicately drags me from out of it by the coiling of her robust appendage. I am deposited as fodder onto my stomach, but I twist myself over onto my side to obtain a better perspective of the bidders. The twins stare in awe, one of them hunched over with his brother conjoined to his spine, raising him up from the waist. Their physique is deformed and fragile, their mouths hanging agape with no inclination to shut. One bears a face of fearful disgust, the other of covetous elation. Despite their minuscule stature, they loom large from my hapless point of vantage. Although they appear powerless, it is impossible to predict what manner of genetic prowess they might possess, being that they are of the Tamas. Though hideous and grotesque as they may be, their garbs speak of an immeasurable wealth.
Dearest Amani, I cannot help but notice that your intrigue toward us seems to surpass even our own inquisitiveness about you,
the lower one posits. My curiosity knows no bounds, this is true. I have very little experience away from my homeland. Up until recently, Saba has been the very first Tamas I have encountered in a close and communicative proximity, I respond.
Fascinating. And who is this Saba that you speak of?
The higher one asks. I am baiting them masterfully. Saba is the other fine warrior I spoke of. Together we are a force to be reckoned with. I pitch this exaggerated ploy in hopes that they procure us as a package.
Well, Omani, we own many Tamas slaves. To add another would do nothing but saturate our stock with redundancy. You, however, are a rare commodity. Omani are no stranger here, but they come as merchants. An Omanu servant is, with no better way to put it, a delicacy of ownership. It is a rather opulent symbol of status to possess one.
They tap their fingertips, pinky to pinky, index to index, with their thumbs greeting, suggesting they require further convincing. My wise masters-to-be, with the utmost respect for your trade and wisdom, I ensure to the both of you that Saba is no ordinary Tamasu. His powers are second to none. He can summon Shianat at will, manipulate the environment through self-generated vibrations, and, what I am about to say may backfire, he is a wanted traitor with a high bounty in Targovadra. Kishnu and Kara's eyes widen. The twins look to Kishnu and stare intently. They've grasped the realization that Kishnu and Kara were unaware of the bounty.
We will give you another 2,000 taros for the both of them.
Then, facing towards me, they say,
The capital has little jurisdiction in Uieti Hidoorve. Entrepreneurs reign here.
Their smiles expand slowly and in unison until transformed into a pair of wicked grins.
Sold.
Kishnu agrees without hesitation. He does not bother to ask how large of a reward has been placed on Saba, which is a number that I am unfamiliar with at any rate. He also knows not that a bounty was more than likely placed upon the each of us. Nevertheless, between us, the artifacts and the nuts, they amass quite the fortune. To say that these traders are well off would be a criminal understatement. They are astonishingly affluent. I dare say they are wealthier than most nobles.
Double count these, Gur.
Grim passes up each sack of money for a second tallying, and his brother marks the amount of every bundle upon a parchment for their daily ledger. Gur, the upper half of our vile purchaser, nods to his twin once finished. They then fill and drag a moderate strongbox, obese and nearly overflowing with the coins, to Kishnu. Kara pulls the yet unconscious Saba from the chariot and carelessly drops him next to me. Without looking back, they board the helm of their transportation, a carriage pulled by two adolescent Shianat, lesser species than the one Saba and I commandeered. Lesser, perhaps, due to either their age or their domestication. Still, they are impressive beasts. The two Zyethori depart from the shady, alley-situated store. Immediately thereafter, the twins begin to dig through various chests throughout their tiny, damp, and plunder-hoarding shop until Grim comes upon what they so frantically searched for in one of the less decorous chests on the floor. They scurry towards Saba and I with illuminated cuffs. These are inhibitors. How have they come to procure such a specific tool of the Omani? Surely in the same way they obtained an actual Omani. I am willing to wager that anything and everything can be bought and sold in these ports. Grim, without having to bend down, applies the cuffs over the predated shackles already locked around my wrists and ankles. The inhibitors snap on as a bending light and adjust to my dimensions. Immediately I can feel that my is no longer accessible to me.
Wake your friend, Omani. The hour has come to close up shop and head home.
The twins command together.
And this is our first order as your new owners. Pay attention as to not disappoint us. It will be to your benefit that you obey without uncertainty, for you shall be rewarded in time for expectedly good behavior.
They mean trouble. The reward is likely their permission to keep breathing. I stand and shake Saba roughly, pushing him with my right foot. After many aggressive attempts, he finally awakens.
Wrap yourselves with these.
The twins hand us 2 dark and dust-capped blankets to disguise ourselves. I signal to Saba that we must adhere for now. We struggle slinging them over us as we are chained. Following not far behind our new masters, I fill Saba in as to what our current predicament is. He listens with intent, but masks his intrigued mind in his refusal to respond. I shuffle the subject at hand. You know, you were quite the philosopher in my illusion, I taunt him teasingly. He yet bears no interest in my poorly executed rouses and my attempts at comical relief. No matter. I take well to a hearty challenge. The congestion of the market around us frees up and is dying down as the day comes to an end and as we approach its eastern exit. Just outside of the gates, we behold our destination. Walled around and adorned with glistening pillars, rare stones, and the finest of decorative flowers, exists the estate of Grim and Gur. It is massive. So much so that we cannot capture its entirety from the ground. It has a multitude of peaks. One in particular, the highest, seems outdated, unkempt, and conflicting with the whole. Walking about, seeing to their duties, are their many servants. Some trim the hedges, others sweep the walkways. A few are polishing the windows, and one is feeding their exotic birds. We climb the beautiful vine-enthralled steps to the main doors of this magnificent home. Inside, I am further fascinated by the array of both Tamas and Omani cultural influences. It seems our hosts are quite the collectors. An elegant, nevertheless wild clash of the quarreling societies yet made to complement one another is found in this palace of covetous merchants. This is a telling hint of what all of Oma may feel like. When my goal of mingling our races and mending their relations is realized. It ought breed a fusion, one without loss of the respective elements of our arts, music, commerce, and sport. This would, in my judgment, make for a splendid world. My determination is rekindled. However, I must consider that the twins have what may be deemed a noble touch, and I cannot suppose such taste will be adopted throughout the world lest I succumb to gullibility. I have always been like this, teetering between what I desire and what is sensible. Oftentimes, anear that which I have pursued only to find that the desire has thinned and become fickle due to a better gained understanding of the workings of the world. In some scenarios, the unpredictability and swaying of my certainty leaves me paralyzed. Is this the best course of action, or is that? Are neither sufficient? Is it the middle ground that ought to be conquered? Perhaps the answer is not within my current purview, and I am better to avoid opining at all. I have since come to fear that my indecisiveness gave rise and nourishment to an impulse of simply taking action, any action, whatsoever it may be, for the sole sake of doing something rather than nothing. Has my setting out from the very beginning been little more than a compulsive whim? A terrible thought, for this pacifies my values, if one can even regard them as being such as they waver so. In any event, I am long departed from a point of return. There is no turning back. I am here, and this is now. Here being the dazzling palace of twin slavers, now being an irreversible point in time in which I find myself a mere possession of the two. Soaking in my surroundings, for it is all I am permitted to do with what little freedom I have left, I note that their place of business pales in comparison to this magnificent structure. They are wise to mask their wealth whilst in the market, although their luxurious vestments betray these efforts.
You may remove the blankets now.
The twins instruct us, and we do as we are told.
Come, come, follow us. We will show you to your room.
Again we comply, having no other choice in the matter. They marshal us to a spiraling staircase, framed in a way to allow for a composition of thousands of live worker manti. I've only read about these meticulous gem-encrusted beetles. These highly sought-after bugs work to build transformable structures in unison through clairvoyant cues from their queen, which is coaxed by the sugary aroma of any sweet produce. I noticed that the twins chose to place a large bowl of iwik fruit, suspended from the ceiling like a chandelier with a mechanism above it, depositing fresh fruit as the weight of the existing one dissipates into the bellies of the workers and their monarch. These insects consistently maneuver and shift positions with one another in a nearly perfect arrangement so that each of them can secure a piece of the fruit and bring it back down to the base where she resides. Amazing. A truly altruistic community. Unlike that of the Omani, whom only pretends to be at peace and feign their compassion. Yes, this is how I feel about my race now. Perhaps not entirely, but enough to have my doubts. However, a terrible contradiction stirs in my stomach about it. I may be wrong to scold my ilk, but that is to be determined still. My confliction may yet prove to land me on the other side of that inconspicuous wall. There my teetering rears its head again. We ascend the stairway, with each step cushioned by the insects, and they do not seem to mind at all that they are being trampled. Their shells are hard and jarring with an ease of grip. We arrive on the second level of Grim and Gur's citadel of a home and advance down the right corridor. The flora engulfed walls up here pulsate like that of the living cave we encountered in the Khan tundra. However, they impose no stench of the dead. I wonder if they grew this part of their home rather than had it built. Quickly, it becomes clear that the structure itself isn't what bulges, but rather the sprawling moss that covers its partitions. In the place of doors, there are simply hollowed holes and strangely shaped, though symmetrical indents up here. We approach a fissure at the very end of this unusual yet somehow familiar hallway.
In you go.
Grim and Gur motion us in.
Do see to it that you get plenty of rest, for we have a particular task for the two of you come the morrow.
They snicker as the crevice seals shut behind our ingress.
You'll get your share to eat in the morning.
The crack from whence we entered is no more. The room is small and damp with two piles of soft leaves on opposite sides. There are no windows. Not even so much as a slit exists to expose the outside world. Casement or not, with these inhibitors clasped to my wrists, I cannot free us. Saba, are you able to call forth your genetic powers whilst shackled? I ask him, knowing he only has heavy metal restraints on and not cuffs like mine, which would not hinder him at all either way, being that he is a Tamasu.
I've already attempted to. Many times. Ever since I woke up from under the influence of Kishnu's constructed illusion, there's been a severing bar in my abilities.
He replies as he stares, eyes narrowed at his hands. Well then, I guess our best course of action is to wait and see what's in store for us. What will become of us? I wonder. Even more pressing, what will become of Parias's artifacts? We collect ourselves in a brief moment of silence, then unwind onto the makeshift beds.